Hello everyone, I'm Snigdha Kakkar and this is my channel Accelerate AI Careers. Today, I'm going to bring 7 questions asked in 5 interviews in last 1 month. So this is quite critical series of my videos which I'll be launching this week, where you'll have almost 35 questions in your bucket which have been asked in last 1 month of interviews. So if you are aiming at cracking any of the 5 interviews, do stay tuned and just help me out. Mention anything in the comments here, whatever you like, whatever you don't like, or just an emoji. It helps with the algorithm of the YouTube here. So let's dive into our first question here. Our first question is 1004 lead code problem, max consecutive ones, 3. What does this question say? So you have been given a binary array nums and an integer k. You have to return the maximum number of consecutive ones which are possible in the array if you can flip at most k zeros. So basically, you might have zeros in between ones in the array, and you can flip at most k zeros. Okay. So let's look at the examples given here in the question to understand the question better. For example, one nums is 11100111110, and k given to you is 2. What does this mean is that you can flip at most 2 zeros. So let's look at what zeros we can flip. So we start from zeroth index and we see that the first zero which occurs is here at index 3. Maybe we can flip that and we can flip the next zero. If we do that, we have maximum of 5 consecutive ones possible. So let's save that somewhere. Now let's look ahead if we could flip this and this zero. In that case, we will have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We will have 6 ones consecutively. So that's max consecutive ones which are possible. Can we do better? So we can flip this zero last and last this zero. Then again, we get max consecutive ones as 6. So our number doesn't change. So our maximum consecutive ones possible if we are allowed to flip 2 zeros is 6. That's around. Now let's look at another example here. So here you have been given in example 2 that you can flip at max 3 zeros. And if you can flip 3 zeros, let's start from zeroth index and check. Suppose I flip the first 3 zeros here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then my max consecutive ones would be 5. Can I do better? Let's move ahead. Maybe I can flip this 0, this 0, and this 0. In that case, I'll have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 ones together. So it's better than the prior output. Let me save it somewhere. But can I even do better? Maybe I need not flip the first 2 zeros and I can flip the next 3 zeros. So I flip this one, and this one. In that case, my output would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So again, it is more than the prior max consecutive one. So I will save this as an output. Now, is there any better outcome I can achieve? You can check all the permutations and combinations. You will find that this is the best output which you can get by flipping 3 zeros. So that's how my output is 10 here. Now let's look at how we coded. So according to me, this is an easy level question and not a medium level question because the logic behind it is very easy and it's maximum of 8 to 10 lines of code. You will see when we start coding it. But the algorithm behind coding it would be 2 pointers approach. We'll be using a left pointer and a right pointer and a sliding window. So the right pointer will keep on moving and checking for the presence of zeros, and we will keep on decrementing k as and when we'll flip zeros. And as soon as our k becomes less than 0, we will start moving our left pointer so that k is never less than 0. As soon as k becomes less than 0, we have to return the extra zeros we are flipping, right? That we do by moving the left pointer. So basic approach, 2 pointer approach, move the right pointer fast, check for the presence of zeros and keep on decrementing your k as and when you are moving your right pointer, and keep on updating your max consecutive ones as well. So max consecutive ones, what would it be? It would be a max of current max consecutive ones and right pointer minus left pointer plus 1. So basically every time until your k is positive, you can increment your r, you can check for max consecutive. As soon as k becomes less than 0, you start moving your left pointer slowly and returning back those extra zeros which you have flipped. So I hope the algorithm is clear to you. If you have any doubts for any question I discussed today, ask them in the comments and let's start coding this question. So I would suggest you code alongside me. That way, if you make certain syntax errors, you can check alongside and you can ask them in the comments. So let's start. So I will first initialize my left pointer with 0 and also initialize my max consecutive value also by 0. Now I will initialize my R and the num by using enumerate my nums array. And then, this is a trick which I'm using. So I will decrement k. As you know, when we are moving our right pointer, we need to decrement k, right? So I'll decrement k, but what do we need to decrement with and when do we need to decrement with? So we have to decrement k only when we do a 0 flip. That means only when the num value is 0, that's the time we need to decrement k. So how do you see that num value is 0? So I'll do 1 minus num. So if your num is 1, in that case, you're not decrementing k. 1 minus 1 would be 0 and you're not decrementing k. But if your num value is 0 and you're flipping it, then 1 minus 0 is 1 and you decrement k by 1 essentially. So this is a trick so that you can do it in one line rather than two lines. You don't have to use if then else and check if your num is 1, then decrement it, else not decrement or something like that. You don't have to do that. You can do it in one line like this. And now we'll check if our k has become less than 0. If it has become less than 0, what do you do? If it becomes less than 0, you have to give 0 back to k. So to do that, you will add 1 minus nums l, because essentially you are moving your L pointer, your left pointer. So you are giving back whatever nums L is, whether it's 1 or 0. So that's why you are adding 1 minus nums L to k in that scenario. And of course, since you're moving L, you have to increment L by 1. Now L, if your k is not less than 0, what do you do in that sense? You will check for your max cons, and it would be max of current max consecutive and right minus left plus 1. That's how you calculate the range. And finally, you can return your max consecutive. So that's your entire code. I'll run it. It's accepted. Let's submit. So you can see our solution is doing very well here. I'll quickly skim through the code again, explain you it again so that you can understand it better. So I first initialize my left pointer and my max consecutive value, which I have to return as a result, which I'm returning here. Then I initialize my right pointer along with num using enumerate. And then I use my trick which I explained. I have to decrement k only when I'm flipping a 0. That means only when my num is 0, I should decrement my k by 1. That's what I'm doing here. If my num is 1, I'm not decrementing k. Now I check if my k is less than 0. If my k is less than 0, I have to return 1 back to k. That's what I'm doing here. I'm adding nums and there basically 1 minus nums l. I'm adding it to k, whatever my nums l value is, because I am moving l. And since I'm moving l, I increment my l by 1. Else, if my k is not less than 0, in that scenario, I update my max cons. And how do I update it? I take the max of current max cons and right minus left plus 1 pointers. And finally, I return my max cons. Now, since I have explained how do you code it, what's the algorithm you're using, let's discuss about the time and space complexity here. So the time complexity here, as you can see, there's only one for loop we are using. That is, we are going from 0th index of the array to the last index of the array only once. We are looping through the array only once, and the rest of the operations we are doing are constant time operations. We are not doing anything extra. So the time complexity would be linear, O of n. And the space complexity, since we are not using any additional space apart from these pointers, which do not take any memory, so we will be using constant space complexity. If you have any doubts, ask them in the comments. If not, we'll move to the next question. Second lead code question we're going to discuss today is 3016, minimum number of pushes to type word to. It's been all-time favorite for Amazon and Meta in last 1 month of their interviews. So let's see what does this question say. You have been given a string word containing lowercase English letters ranging from A to Z. And you have been given an imagery of an old telephone keypad similar to this. You can have letters from digit 2 to 9 here. So letter A, if you want to press letter A, in that case you have to press 2 once. If you have to press letter B, you have to press 2 twice. And if you have to press letter C, you have to press 2 thrice. So, and you have to take pause every now and then so that the phone can register that you're pressing A or you're pressing B or you're pressing C. So in case, if you have to press A 3 times, you have to press 2 3 times. But if you have to press B 2 times, then you have to press 2 4 times. because B is the second letter. If you have to press C 3 times, in that case, you have to press 2 9 times because C is the third letter. So you have to press 2 3 times to register one C. And if you have 3 C's, you have to press 2 9 times. I hope that is clear to you. So now, this mapping from digit 2 to 9 for these letters can be changed. Your goal is to have minimum number of pushes for that word which you have been given. And you can only use 2 to 9 digits. You cannot use key 1 or asterisk or 0 or hash. This is your entire question. The complexity in the question is itself this language and a lot of text given to you here. The diagram is helpful, but it's not that helpful. Hence, the level of the complexity is given medium here. Trust me, the question is quite simpler. So let's look at the example 1 given to you here. So you have been given word A, B, C, D, E. So how many minimum number of key presses do you need to achieve this or to type this word? You don't have to create this new mapping. Every time you have been given a question, you just have to estimate the number of key presses you need. So to do that, if I have to see that my number of letters given to me is less than 8 and I have 8 keys here, I can put all the distinct letters on separate keys so that I have to do only one press for each letter. And that's my answer here. So I have 5 distinct letters A, B, C, D, E. Suppose I give them to different keys like A to 2, B to 3, C to 4, D to 5, and E to 6. In that scenario, I have to press each digit only once to register that key, and hence my output is 5. So the remapping can be any which way, but I'll give all these letters to different keys so that I press only once to register that letter. So that is the minimum number of key presses I need. Now let's look at another example. What happens if my each letter repeats and my number of letters given to me is more than 8? In such a scenario, there are about to be duplicates and I have to check how many key presses I need. I'll first take these letters and I'll sort them by the count. So when you register count and sorting the letters by count, you think of hash map, right? That is a good option, but I'll show you an approach how you can do it without using a hash map, just using an array for the counts. Okay. I'll give X to a separate key, Y to a separate key, and Z to a separate key. So that's what have been done here. X has been given to letter 2, Y has been given to letter 3, and Z has been given to letter 4. But every time I have to press X, I have to press it once. So X has occurred 4 times here, so I have to press it 4 times. Y has occurred 4 times here, and Z has occurred 4 times here. Hence, you are pressing these 3 keys 4 times each, and hence your output is 12. So I hope the example is clear to you. Let's look at example 3. So here, you will first compute the counts for each letter and then sort them in the descending order by count. So like I has occurred the maximum time I can see, same ways you sort them by count. And whatever has occurred as maximum counts, you take that as the first letter in the key so that you have to press it only once for each repetition. So that's what they have done it here. They have given I to 9. So you have to essentially press 9 6 times to get the key here. And same ways, they have given E to 6, D to 5. So you give it to distinct keys A to 2, B to 3, C to 4, D to 5, E to 6, and then F to 7, G to 8, and I to 9. But then you have you have another key. Apart from these 8 keys, you have H. So you can give H to next key, you can give H to 9, but then you have to press H twice. So why I is the first letter here and why H is the second letter? Because count of I is max. So you want I to be the first letter, so you have to press it only once to get that count. While H has occurred less number of times when compared to I, and you don't have any key further where no letter has occurred, so you keep it at 9, but you keep it as a second key because it has occurred only twice. So you'll press essentially 9 4 times to get H 2 times. I hope that is clear. So the algorithm behind solving this question is first, get the counts for occurrence of each letter. Now get the distinct number of letters. The counts should be sorted in descending order. Once your descending order counts are sorted, after that, for the first 8 counts in descending order, distribute those letters to distinct keys. The next occurrence of the 8 letters, distribute them to the next occurrence of the distinct keys because their count is less than the first 8, and then followed by the next 8. And then the next 2. You have 26 letters at max. You don't have more than 26 alphabets, right? So you can divide them this way. So you don't have to do the mapping every time the question is given to you. You just have to use this trick to solve the question. So now, how would we solve this question without using a hash map for counts? So I can initialize the array for, because I just am interested in the counts and not the key values, not the A, B, C, D alphabets. So I can initialize an array of length 26 with zeros and then update the value for each index based on the occurrence of the alphabet. But the index of the array will be 0 to 25, while my alphabets are not 0 to 25. My alphabets are small letter A, lowercase letter B, lowercase letter C. So I'll first use ASCII code to convert those alphabets to their ordinal values, and then I'll bring them to the range 0 to 25 by subtracting the ordinal value of lowercase letter A. I hope that is clear to you. So now let's start coding this, and with my code, if you have any doubts, ask them in the comments, and then I'll be happy to address those questions. But first, initialize my array like I described. I will initialize my zeros array for 26 length, and then I will go through each character in my word given to me, and I'll update the counts for that particular character. But again, my characters are alphabets, lowercase alphabets, while my indices of the array are 0 to 25. So to bring them to the same range, I will take the ordinal value of my character C and subtract the ordinal value of lowercase letter A to bring them in the same range of 0 to 25. And I'll increment this count by 1 whenever I encounter them in the word given to me. And once I have updated my counts array, I can sort them in descending order. So how do you sort counts array in descending order? You just write reverse equal to true. Now you would say that this could be time complexity of O of n log n since we are sorting, but that's not true because your length of counts array is limited to 26. So it's constant time complexity rather than n log n. Okay. So after that, I will initialize my result value to 0. My result value basically indicates minimum number of key presses I made. And I'll also initialize my distinct character value to 0. How many distinct characters I'm encountering in word. So now I will go through the counts array for count in counts, and I will check my count and I'll update my result. So my how many number of key presses I need if I'm allocating a letter to a digit in the first place. So if I'm allocating it to the first place, then I need 1 key press. If I'm allocating it to the second place, then I need 2 key presses. If I'm allocating it to the third place, I need 3 key presses. So the first 8 letters in terms of count sorted will need only 1 key press each time. The second 8 characters which have the counts less than the first 8 will need 2 key presses. And the following 8 will need 3 key presses. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to update my result with the count, multiply it by, because if it is the first key, then I will use 1 plus distinct. So if my distinct is less than 8, in that case, I need 1 key press every time, right? Because my distinct number of alphabets is less than 8. So basically, say suppose it is less than 8, it is 7. So if I have 7 distinct characters and distribute them to 7 keys, so 7 divided by 8, my remainder is 0. So 1 plus 0, that is 1. And my count into 1. So that means every time they have occurred, I'll press only once. Now say suppose my distinct characters which I have is more than 8, say it's 15. So 15 divided by 8, 15 divided by 8 will give me 1. So 1 plus 1 is 2. So that means 2 key presses for every count. That is what we need, right? If say suppose it is more than 16, say it is 17. In that case, distinct divided by 8 would be 2. 1 plus 2 is 3. That means 3 times you are pressing for every count. That's what you want, right? And you have to also increment your distinct every time you encounter a count. So, because for every alphabet, you have a count. So, whenever you encounter a count in counts, that means that's corresponding to a distinct alphabet. That's your entire code. Just return the result. So, I can just run it. See, it's accepted. Let's submit. As you can see, the solution is doing quite well here, and it's the most optimum solution you can come up with. Now I just came through the code and explain you what we did, why we did. So I first initialized my counts array for 26 length because there are 26 distinct alphabets possible. There cannot be more than 26 lowercase alphabets. Now I'll go through the word, and for each character, I'll update this count. Now, for those counts to be updated, I'll bring my character C in its ordinal value and subtract the ordinal value of lowercase a to bring it in the same range of 0 to 25, which is my indices in the array, and update the count. Now I'll sort the counts array by a descending order. That's what I have done here. Then I'll initialize my result value and distinct alphabets value. So for every count in counts, it corresponds to one distinct alphabet ranging between small a to small c. And that's what I'm doing. For every count in counts, I'm incrementing my distinct. And I'm using that distinct and doing a division, integer division by 8 to get how many key presses I need. So if my distinct alphabets count is less than 8, I can divide them to distinct keys and I have to do only one press. So that's why I'm doing a division by 8 and adding 1 there. But if my distinct characters is between 8 to 16, in that case, I need 2 presses. And if you calculate, that's what I'm doing here. If it is between 16 to anywhere in between 26, I need 3 key presses. So this result corresponds to that. And finally, I return my result. So this is your entire code. So I hope the question is clear to you. And if you have any doubts, ask them in the comments here. So our third question is LeetCode 767 reorganized string. It has been asked by companies such as Amazon, Microsoft, Meta, Netflix, Tesla, Adobe in their last 1 month of interviews. So it's kind of very important question. If you're interested, look at the description of the question first and then pause the video and solve the question yourself. And after that, replay the video and watch the solution I'm presenting here. So I'll be discussing a few approaches. Whatever you feel like is the most optimum approach, try coding with that first and then look at my solution. Let me know how did you find it. So let's look at what this question says. So you have been given a string S and you have to rearrange the characters of S so that any of the two adjacent characters are not the same. That is, an A and A should not come together. There should be a character in between. So you have to return any possible rearrangement. There could be more than one rearrangements possible to do that. But you have to return any one rearrangement that is possible in such a way that no two same characters come adjacent to each other. And if that is not possible, you have to return an empty string. Let's look at a few examples to understand the question better. The question seems very simple on the outside, but it's a very complex question, and I would rate it as a hard level question rather than a medium level question. And that's why it's one of the favorites by many of the companies. So let's look at the examples to understand it better, and then I'll explain you the algorithm behind solving this question. Example 1. S given to you is AAB. The output would be, actually you take A and then put B in between and then A. That way the two A's are not adjacent to each other. This example shows us one approach which we can start with is find the most frequent alphabet and then separate it with the less frequent alphabets. So that's your first hunch while solving this question. But will that approach work for all the strings? So let's look at example 2. In example 2, the string given to you is AAAB. So if you say you take the most frequently occurring alphabet, which is A, and then put a B, and then put an A, but then there is no other option but another A. So there would always be two adjacent A's happening in whatever reorganization you do. Hence, none of the solutions will work here. That's why the output would be an empty string. Because that's the default you have to return if you're not able to achieve any rearrangement that can lead to two adjacent characters not being the same. So let's look at what are the possible approaches we can take to solve this question. By the way, I have explained the examples. You might have gauged that we need the frequency of occurrence of each alphabet first, which paves the way to our solution using a hash map, right? To use the hash map, I first put the frequency with the alphabets. So A will have frequency as 3, B will have frequency as 2, C will have frequency as 2. Say, suppose this is the example given to you. In that case, let me take the approach we took for example 1. We take A, then we take B, and then we take C. So we reduce the count for A to 2, reduce the count for B to 1, reduce the count for C to 1. So now we have ABC. Now we take another A and another B and another C. And so it's ABC, ABC, A. And your counts reduce accordingly. So this rearrangement works. So will this approach work for every solution? Let's look at another example. You have the frequency for A as 3 you have the frequency for B as 1 and you have the frequency for C as 1. In such a scenario, you take A, B, C, and your count reduces for A to 2, B to 0, C to 0. Thus, your output would be A, B, C, A, A. And you would say that since two A's are coming together, the output should be an empty string. But that's not true. There is a rearrangement possible for this, which would be A, B, A, C, or A, C, A, B, A, in which all the adjacent alphabets are different. So, how to achieve this? So, the better approach is take the most frequent character each time, which is A in this scenario. So you take A and then you take the less frequent ones, which could be a B or C. You take B. But then after that, you would say that after A, I could have taken the most frequent character again. I could have taken an A. So the hunch there is that put the previous character on hold. So if you take an A, which is the most frequent character, then you put A on hold because that is the previous character you have taken. And take the character which is not A. So you take a B or C. Then you check for the most occurrence of the character. So A, the count has reduced to 2. B, the count has reduced to 0. Whereas C, the count is still 1. So you take a C after A. And then the remaining character is A. So that's how you achieve this. So your algorithm should be you take the most frequent character each time. Then you put the character which you have taken previously on hold and take the next frequently occurring character. And that's how you're going to solve it. But is there a better approach to do this rather than using a hash map? Why am I saying this? Because every time you're checking for most frequent character in a hash map, that means you're going through the hash map and searching for the most frequent character. You're going through the values and finding the one which has the most count, right? The maximum count, which is itself of time complexity O of n square. In this scenario, if we assume that the number of alphabets is going to be fixed and it would be 26, in such a scenario, the time complexity for this solution would be O of 26 into n rather than O of n square. But will this solution be accepted by LeetCode? Is there a better solution possible? So we have a data structure which actually works well to find the most frequently occurring characters, and that data structure is max heap. But when I'm doing the question using Python, you would say there's no default structure called max heap in Python, but there is a min heap. So we'll be using a max heap to solve this question, and it's easier to solve in Java or any other language using a max heap because they have a default data structure for max heap, while Python doesn't. So in Python, we'll be using a min heap, and then we'll be saving the character as well as the count. And since min heap always takes out the minimum, what we will do is we'll make all the counts as negative. So instead of 3, 2, 1, we'll have counts as -3, -2, -1, and 0. So we will be taking out the alphabets unless their count reaches 0. And every time we take the character out, instead of decreasing the count, we'll be adding 1 to the count because we have taken negative of all the counts. So I hope you understand our approach. So we'll be using a min heap rather than a max heap because Python has a default data structure called min heap. And for facilitating the functioning of min heap as a max heap, we'll be negating all the counts and we'll be adding 1 to count of the alphabet which we are choosing to take. Okay. And this takes our time complexity to search in a min heap to O of log n. And our overall time complexity, assuming there are more than 26 alphabets, would be O of n log n. And if you assume there are just 26 alphabets, then time complexity would be O of 26 log n. So I hope the algorithm is clear. I know it's a difficult question and you might still be wondering, what is she talking about, right? Yeah, but keep your doubts on pause right now, go through the video again, and then watch my solution while coding it alongside me. It takes 1 or 2 goes to understand each nitty-gritty in this question. And if you have any doubts, ask them in the comments. I'll be happy to address it. So let's start coding this question and just clear this out. So first of all, I'll first initialize my count variable and I'll be using a default function called counter here. So this is nothing but actually a hash map for count for each character. Right? So that's the default. So I first got the count. Now this is just a hash map, right? But I want a max heap. So to do that, I'll initialize max heap and I'll be taking list and then a list. And like I told you, we'll be negating all the counts. So I negate all the counts and I take the character. So I'm taking basically minus count and character pairs. So I'm basically using a list comprehension for character and count in count dot items. So I'm just doing a list comprehension of this and then negating on the count and saving them in a pair of count and character. Why count first and character second? That's because in main heap usually there's a tendency that it looks for this value and compares this value rather than the second value. So hence I have kept count first and then character. Now this is still a list, it's not a heap yet. So to convert it to heap, I will do heap dot heapify max. And this operation itself takes O of n time complexity just for your reference. Okay. Now I will initialize my previous value because I need to compare my previous value and put it on bold. I cannot use the previous alphabet, right? So I'll initialize it with none for now. And I'll also initialize my result string by an empty string. The result string should be one rearrangement possible where none of the adjacent characters are the same. So I'll first initialize my result string. After that, I will run my while loop. So while either my max heap has been not null or my previous value is not null, this loop should run until then. Okay. Now I will check for the default scenario. Remember the example where you have the frequency for A as and the frequency for B as 1. In such a scenario, there is no rearrangement possible in which A will not be together, right? So I have to handle that scenario first. So what happens in such a scenario? Your heap has A as 3, B as 1. So you take the most frequently occurring character, you take A, then you keep A on hold because you just took A and you bring. After that, your count in max heap is B0 and A is not there because A is in your previous now. And your count in previous for A is 2, right? So your max heap has become null, but your previous has character A with count 2. So in such a scenario, your previous is not null or your max heap is 0. In such a scenario, you have to return empty string. So let me explain again. So what I did, I have A3, B1. I first take one character which is most occurring, which is A, and I put A on hold because I just took A. Then I take B. So my heaps count get updated. So A is not a heap anymore because A is a part of previous and B's count is 0. This is your heap now. And your previous would be A with the count as 2. So this A count of 2 will be in your previous. That's how you keep on updating your previous. So you can see that your max heap is null here, but your previous is not null. In such a scenario, there is no solution possible where the most occurring character will not be adjacent because then you have to take an A from previous and then push it to heap and then again an A. So in such a scenario, you have to return an empty string. So that's what I'm going to do here. So I will check if my previous is not null and my max heap is null. So if that happens, that means there is no rearrangement possible where two characters adjacent to each other would not be the same. So I'll return empty here. So I've handled this default situation. After that, I will find the most frequent character except the previous one. So I don't want the previous one, right? That's the solution, right? Every time I look for the most frequent from the max heap, but I have to keep the previous on hold. So I will check for count and character, and I use another function of heap, which is heap for. And since it's a min heap, I will do max heap here, the name, but the count is negative, right? So you got it what I mean. After that, you will add this character to your result because you have popped it up. And you will also increase your count because your counts are negative. That's why you are increasing. If there would have been a max heap default data structure in Python, then you would not have negated all the counts. And in such a scenario, you would have taken count minus equal to 1. But that's not possible. Hence, we are adding 1 to the count since we have negated all the counts here. So I hope you understand it. Now, I will check if there is a previous value. That is, your previous is not null and there is a previous value already there. So you cannot overwrite it. You first have to push that previous value to heap. So I will use another function of and I'll push heap, push max heap. So I'm pushing it to max heap, and what I'm pushing to max heap, it's the previous. So, and I will set my previous to none. After that, I will check if my count is not equal to 0. You can use the condition count less than 0 as well, because all the counts are negative. So if my count is not equal to 0, in such a scenario, your count is here. So if my count is not equal to 0 or it is less than 0, I will push that value to previous. So I will push count and character to previous. And I have handled all the scenarios now. I can just return the result. So I'll return the result. So I'll run my question. It's accepted. Let's submit. So you can see the solution is doing really great here. The time complexity is of 26 log n. If you assume there are only 26 alphabets, if you assume that there are n alphabets, so its time complexity would be of n log n. But let me explain the question again, since it's a very complex question. I don't want to leave you hanging here. And if you still have doubts, I would suggest you go through the video again, or you ask the doubts in the comments. I can go in detail with the question wherever you have doubts then. So let me explain the question. For we first need the counts or occurrences of each alphabet. For that, we use the counter function from Python, and we did count is equal to counter s. After that, I initialize my max heap variable, which is not a heap right now. I'm just doing a list comprehension and creating a list. So here I create a list of minus count comma character, because there is no max heap in Python. There is only a min heap. So to make a min heap work like a max heap, I'm negating the counts, and then it pulls the minimum value from that heap, which is actually the maximum count if multiplied by -1. So we are basically working with the min heap using negative counts. And I take the list minus count comma character for character and count in count.items. That's how you use list comprehension. Now I have created the list out of max heap. I will just heapify it to convert it to a heap. So until now, I hope it's clear. Then I initialize my previous value with none, because we need the previous value so that we can keep it on hold whenever we have used that value just now. Okay, so that no two adjacent characters are the same. I also initialize my result value with an empty list. And then I run my while loop. That while loop will run when either your previous is not null or your max heap is not null. It will run till then. But I have to handle one scenario where where your rearrangement is just not possible, which is similar to like when your A frequency is 3 and your B frequency is 0. In such a scenario, there is no such rearrangement possible where your two adjacent values will not be equal, will not be the same. Okay. So in such a scenario, like I explained earlier, your max heap would have turned to null, like your counts in max heap would be null, zeros, whereas your previous would be not null. So an empty string. Now, if that scenario is not true and you can process and get a rearrangement, you pop the value from max heap and store it in count and character variable. And then push that character, you add that character to your result, and then you increment your count. Because you have already popped it once, right? You have used it once. Or since you are using min with negative counts, that's why you are adding one to the count and not decrementing it. After that, you check if your previous value is not null. In case it is not null, you have to first push that value from the previous to the heap. That's what I have done here. And then you reset your previous to. Now, once you have reset your previous to none, after that, you go and check if your count is not 0. That is, your count is still less than 0, count is still negative. That means you still have that character and count. You add that to your previous, because you have just popped it. So you need to put it on hold so that you don't use it again, so that no two adjacent characters are same in your rearrangement. That's what you're doing. So you save the just popped count and character pair to previous after you have set previous to none. Okay. And then you finally return the result. So this will work for your solution. You can test it. So for example, you have A as 3, B as 1, and C as 1. In such a scenario, you have already heapified and your counts will get saved. So your A's count would actually get saved as -3. B's count will all actually get saved as -1. And C's count will actually get saved as -1 in your max heap. And your previous would be null. Your result string would be empty. Now your heap is not null. You can see your previous is none because you have initialized it as none. And you go through the loop. Here, this condition is not true. because your max heap is not null, right? So you go through this and you pop the most frequent. Your most frequent is A, when -3 is the count, right? So in such a scenario, your count comes to be -3 and your character comes to be A. So you add it to the result and your result becomes A. Okay. And then you increment the count. After that, you check if your previous is not none, but your previous is none yet now, and your count is not equal to 0, it's less than 0, right? So your previous gets set to -4 and 8. And your max heap right now, since you popped A, your max heap has two lists, and one list has the count -1 and B, and the other list has count -1 and C. So now you check for the next most frequent in the heap, which could be B or C. So you pop B. Okay. In such a scenario, now your count gets set to -1 and your character gets set to B. After that, your result A, B. Okay. And then you add that count to previous, but your previous is not none. Your previous has this value -4A right now. So since it's not none, you push it to heap. So your max heap now becomes -A, but you have to add 1. Sorry, I made a mistake here. It's not -4, it will be -2. I subtracted 1. You have to add 1 here. So your max heap become -2A and -1C. And then you can push this count -1 and B pair to previous because it gets set to none. But you have to add 1 to the count here, right? So -1 plus 1 would be 0. But you cannot set previous 0 comma B because if your count is not 0, then only you will set the previous. Otherwise, your previous becomes null. So it will remain null. Okay. So now your heap is this, your previous is none. You again go through the loop. So the most frequently occurring one is -2A. So now your count is -2 and your character is A. Then your result gets set to A, right? You add 1 to the count, so your new count would be -1. Okay. And your max heap, since your previous is none, so nothing to push to the max heap. Your max heap right now is -1, comma C. There is only one pair there now remaining. And now, since your count is not null, it is less than 0, your previous gets set to -1, comma A. So now you push, now you check for max heap and your max heap is -1, comma C. So you pop it. So your new result becomes A, B, A, and your count would be, since you pop that count -1, comma C pair, your count would be -1, but then you have to add 1 here in line 17. So you add -1 plus 1, which will be 0, and your character would be C. That's what you have added to the result. But your count is 0, so you cannot add it to the previous. And your previous is -1, comma A, so you have to add it to the heap. So your max heap becomes a list of -1, comma A. So now you pop it again, and your result becomes B, C, A. The count which you popped was -1, but you have to add 1 here, so your count becomes 0. And finally, you have reached the end of loop. Your result is this, and you return the result. So I hope you understand with this example how this loop is actually working. And the time complexity would be O of n log n, assuming that there are n alphabets and not 26 alphabets. If you assume there are 26 alphabets, the time complexity would be O of 26 log n. Our fourth question is LeetCode 1768, merge strings alternately. It's an easy level question. It's an all-time favorite for Amazon, Meta, Microsoft, Google, Netflix in their last 1 month of interviews. So even though it's easy, it's important. So let's look at what does this question say. You have been given two strings, word 1 and word 2. As the name of the question indicates, merge strings alternately. You need to merge the strings by adding letters in alternating order. You start with word 1 and ending of the strings is longer. In that case, you append the remaining characters to the end of the string. So, for example, you have word 1 as ABC, word 2 as PQR. So, you take the first letter of word 1, which is A, then first letter of word 2, which is P, then second letter of word 1, B, second letter of word 2, Q, third letter of word 1, C, and third letter of word 2, R. So, your merged string would be APBQCR. Now, if say suppose your word 1 was still ABC, but your word 2 was PQRXYZ, in that case your output would be APBQCRXYZ. Basically, when your one of the strings runs out of bound, you append the remaining characters of the next string to the end of the merged string. That's what your question says. Let's look at example 2. So here word 1 is AB, word 2 is PQRS. So your output would be APBQRS. Similar to what I have explained in example 1. Since RS is the additional letters while your word 1 has run out of bounds, that's why they are appended at the end of the merged strings. Now let's look at example 3. Your word 1 is ABCD, your word 2 is PQ. In that case, your output would be APBQCD. In this case, word 2 has run out of bounds. That's why the letters of word 1 remaining once word 2 has run out of bounds, that is letter CD, have been appended to the end of the merged string. So I hope from these examples you have deduced what we are doing. It's essentially a question where we'll be having 2 pointers, one for tracking letters in word 1, another for tracking the letters in word 2, I and J pointers, and we'll keep on moving those pointers and appending the letter at that pointer at ith or jth pointer to our result string. And finally, once one of them runs out of bounds, we append the remaining characters to the end of our result string. And finally, we return our result. So that's the entire algorithm behind this question. Quite easy to comprehend. Let's start coding it. If you have any doubts at any time, ask them in the comments. How do we solve it? Like I said, it's a 2-pointer question. So we'll first initialize our I and J pointer by 0 and 0. After that, I will initialize my string. Now my result string can be initialized like this, but appending anything to a string is a more complex operation. It's computationally more extensive. Instead, I will initialize my result string as an array and I can do a join later on. So I will do a join using an empty string for my result. And that would be more computationally inexpensive. So I'll be using this approach. Now I will check if both the strings are in bounds. So I will check for while I is less than word 1 length and J is less than word 2 length. If that's true, in that scenario, I will append the characters to the result. So result dot append word 1 I, and then copy the same thing because I'm going to do same thing for word 2. It's just the pointer, the name will change. And then I increment my pointers. So I increments by 1, J increments by 1. And this loop runs until both are in bounds. Once we have crossed that thing and one of the strings is out of bounds, in that scenario, we'll have to append the remaining characters to the string. How do we do that? So to do that, I will take result dot append word 1 I till the end. And same thing I'm going to do for string 2 because I don't know which string has run out of bounds. So I have to put the same thing for string 2, just change word 1 to word 2 and I to J. And that's your entire code. So I'll just run it. It's accepted. Let's submit. So as you can see, our solution is doing well here. Now, let me tell you the time complexity of this question. Suppose word 1 is of length n characters and word 2 is of length m characters. So your time complexity would be O of n plus m. Why? Because you are running the loop across the two arrays just once. So it would be O of n plus m time complexity, that is linear time complexity operation. And space complexity would be constant since you're not using any additional space except for the result, right? So that's your entire code. Let me explain the code once again so that you can understand it better. So we initialize our 2 pointers with zeros. We initialize our result array rather than a result string because it is so computationally inexpensive, right? And then we start our while loop when both the strings are in bounds. And I'll append character 1 by 1 to the result array. Once I've done that, I increment my pointers. And this loop runs unless one of the string runs out of bounds. Once one of the strings has run out of bounds, we go out of the loop and we append the remaining characters to our result. That's what we have done here. And finally, we have to return the result in form of string and not an array. That's why we are converting it to string by using a join with an empty string. And that's our entire code. Today, we are going to solve LeetCode 135, Candy. The hard-level LeetCode problem has been an all-time favorite for Google, Amazon, and Meta in their last 1 month of software dev interviews. There are 8 children standing in a line, and each child is assigned a rating value given to them, and there's an integer array ratings provided to you, as shown in the examples here. You are giving candies to these children subjected to the following rule. The first rule is that each child should have at least one candy, that is, bare minimum number of candies you can give to a child is one. And children with a higher rating than one of its neighbors, either next neighbor or right neighbor, then it should get more candies than that particular neighbor. And you have to return the minimum number of candies you would need such that these two rules are met while distributing the candies to the children. So let's look at some examples to understand how the question can be solved. So the first example you have is ratings equal to 102, where your first child is given rating as 1 and its neighbor has rating 0. So it has more rating than its right neighbor. So it should get more candies than this child. Suppose we give bare minimum 1 candy to each child as indicated in the first rule. And then the child has more rating in this than its neighbor, so it should get 2 candies, bare minimum. Now it can get more than 2, but since we have to return minimum number of candies, I'm taking just 1 increment. Now the second child, which has 0 ratings, does not have more rating than any of its neighbors, so it is good with 1 candy. The last child has ratings as 2, which is greater than its neighbor, and thus should get more candies than its neighbor, which should be 1 plus 1, that is 2. So if the total number of candies which are required minimum to follow the 2 rules is 2 plus 1 plus 2, that is 5 candies. And that's your output here. Now let's look at the example 2. In example 2, you have been given a ratings array 1, 2, 2. Now, the first child has 1 rating which is less than the second child's, hence can go ahead with just 1 candy. The second child has rating 2 which is greater than its left neighbor, hence it should get 1 candy more than its left neighbor at least, so it should have 2 candies. Now, the third child has equal rating as its prior neighbor, so there is no such rule indicating that if you have an equal rating, you should get more candies, so hence it can go ahead even with 1 candy, because it doesn't have a higher rating. I hope you understand this. Now let's look at another example which I have 2, 3, 4, 5. So in such a scenario, how we should solve this question? So let's take a left pass, start from 0th index of the array and start going to the last index and check for all of the left neighbors. If you have more rating than any of the left neighbors, in such a scenario, you increase the number of candies accordingly, starting from 1 candy. But then you would say we are not checking for the right neighbor and we don't know how many candies actually the right neighbor has. So we cannot even increment by 1 or more, right? So I take a right pass, that is start from the last index and go towards the 0th index and then check for every right neighbor and see if I have more rating than the right neighbor. If I have more rating than the right neighbor in such a scenario, I increment by number of candies. So essentially, I have to take 2 passes. I have to start from 0th index, go till the last index and check for all the left neighbors and increment my candies accordingly. And similarly, I have to take a pass from the last index to the 0th index and check for all the right neighbors. In such a scenario, I don't need to include the starting index when taking a left pass because the starting index value does not have a left neighbor. So essentially, it can start with 1 candy. Similarly, when I'm starting backwards and I'm starting from the rightmost index, in such a scenario, I don't need to start the rightmost index because it doesn't have a right neighbor. So I can start with the prior index. I hope you understand that exception. And what would be the time complexity here? The time complexity here would be O of n since you're taking 2 linear passes for the array. So time complexity would be O of n. You are using another array to store the number of candies. So space complexity would also be O of n. So let's start coding this question. So I'll initialize my candy array by ones, that is the minimum number of candies given to any student. And the length of the array would be the length of ratings array because those many children we have and we have to give 1 candy to each child. After that, we do a first left pass. So for I in range, and what would be the range? Range would be 1 to length of the ratings. We are skipping the first index, that is the 0th index value because it doesn't have a left neighbor, like we discussed in the algorithm explanation. So we'll check if the ratings for I minus 1 index, that is the left neighbor, is less than ratings I, which is the current index. If that is true, in that case, the candy for I index value would be candy of I minus 1 index value plus 1, because the I minus 1 index ratings value is less than the ith index rating value. So hence, you will first take the value of I minus 1 index carries and just add 1 there. So that is your first pass. Now I will do the second pass. So I will check for I in range, and I have to skip the last index because it doesn't have a right neighbor. So I will take length of ratings minus 2, because length of ratings minus 1 is my last index, right? So length of ratings minus 2, so that I can skip the last one, and I'll put in minus 1 with a step sense of minus 1. That's how you do it in Python when you go backwards. Now I will check if ratings of my current index, which is I, is greater than rating of I plus 1, which was my right neighbor. If that is true, you would say that I would reuse the same formula, but instead of I minus 1, I would have I plus 1. But remember, you have already done a left pass. And it might just be that the current value of candy I would be more than whatever candy I plus 1 is. So you have to take that into consideration. Hence, your candy I value would actually be a max of your current candy I value. That is, when you did your left pass, you might have updated saying something to 3 candies or 4 candies. So you cannot overwrite it as is. You will take a max of current candy I value and candy I plus 1 plus 1. Because you will check if the right neighbor has lesser number of ratings when compared to your current index, then you have to increment the number of candies so that it gets more candies, right? But before doing that, you have to check if it is currently more, right? And then take the max. So that's the entire code. And then what do you return? You return total number of candies. So you can calculate total number of candies and return. So return sum of candy array. And just run the code. It's accepted. Let's submit and see our solution is doing well. Here we have a linear time complexity solution. We are doing 2 passes, one left pass and one right pass. Just skipping the starting indices for both because they don't have left and right neighbors respectively. And we also take a max here rather than just taking the neighbor's carry value and adding 1, because current value might already be more than that. Okay. So I hope you understand the solution. I can skim through the solution for you once more. We first initialize a candy array, that is the number of candies being given to each student based on the ratings. And initialize it by 1, since that is the minimum number of candies you would give. And length we would take is length of ratings, that is the total number of children. Now we'll first do the left pass and compare the current index ratings value with the left index value. And if it is more, if the current index value is more, then we give it the number of candies as its left index candies plus 1. Same we do for the right one as well. In right one, we take a max between current value and whatever the right index candies are plus 1. So whatever is max, we allocate that and then we return sum of candy. So I hope you understand this solution. If you have a better approach, share it in the comments. I would love to know more about it. So the sixth question we are going to solve today is LeetCode 460 NFU cache. It is one of the hard level LeetCode problems and all-time favorite for Amazon, Meta, and Google in their interviews in last 1 month. So what does this question say and why is it a hard level problem? So this question is very similar to an NRU cache, which is least recently used cache. So if you have not done that question before, I would suggest you do that question as well. Now let's see what does this question say. So you have to design and implement a data structure or a cache for NFU. And in this class, you will have 2 functions. One is a get function, other is a put function. In get function, you basically give the key and you get the value. In put function, you basically insert a new value corresponding to a key. But what happens if the cache is already full and there is no space available to put that new value? In such a scenario, you have to first pop some value. And which value will you pop? You will pop least frequently used value. But the complication arises if you have more than one values which have equal count and both are least frequently used. In such a scenario, you cannot pick up any one of them randomly. You have to pick up and pop the one which is least recently used. as indicated in the question here. So to determine this, which one is the least frequently used or which one is the least recently used, you have to use a counter and you have to maintain that count. Now, the statements and the requirements of the question were not that complex enough, but there is one more complexity. You have to code this get and put function with O1 average time complexity, that is constant time complexity. Besides taking care of the count, besides taking care of the least frequently used value, besides taking care of least recently used values and handling all the edge cases, you have to do everything in O1 time complexity. So that's how the complexity of the question increases. So let's look at one of the examples here. So you have been given an input and if you cache, put, these operations have been given to you and the count gets updated. So just as indication, I need to tell you, whenever you are inserting the value for the very first time, the count gets initialized by 1. So whenever you do the put operation for the first time, the count gets set as 1. But when you insert a new value for the same key which is already there, then the count increments. The count also will increment when you perform a get operation because it is being used, right? So that's the catch here, and that's how the count is changing. So I hope you understand that. And every time the output is given to you. For example, use of counter for the key X here, whatever key you are inputting, and cache is the cache you are maintaining. And least frequently used cache is your data structure where you are recording all these outputs. So first thing is NFU dot put 1 1. So you have to put key value as 1 and value is 1. So you have to do that. So it inserts key 1 and the count for 1 gets updated to 1. Now is NFU dot put 2 2. So again count 2 would be 1, count 1 would be 1. NFU dot get 1. So in that case, one value is 1, it returns 1. So earlier the return value would be null because there is no get operation. Here the return value would be 1. Now the next thing is NFU dot put 3 comma 3. So since count of 2 is 1, but you have already been provided that your NFU cache capacity is 2. So that's why NFU dot put 3 comma 3. 2 is the NFU key because the count of 2 is 1. It's the least frequently used key because count of 2 is 1, whereas count of 1 is 2 because you performed a get operation there and a put operation there. And hence, count of 2 is 1, so it is the smallest and we invalidate 2. First of all, we pop 2 and then we insert. And count of 3 is 1 and count of 1 is 2. Now, NFU dot get 2 is the next operation, but 2 you already popped, so it is not there. So return this -1 not found. Now, next operation is NFU dot get. Now, get 3, you have to return the count of 3 would be 2 because there is a get operation also happening here, and you return the value for 3 and count of 1 would be 2. Now, the next thing is NFU dot put 4 comma 4. Now, as you can see, both count for 3 and 1 is 2. So, least frequently used would be either of the two. But you cannot pick one randomly. You have to pick one which was least recently used. Now, recently you did a get operation of 3. So, the one value is least recently used. So, you have to pop 1. And then you insert 4. So, now finally your count 4 would be 1 and count 3 would be 2. Now, NFU dot get 1. Since 1 has already been popped, there would be no 1 finally found there and you return -1. Now, NFU dot get 3. You return the value for 3, but at the same time you will update the count of 3 used would be 3 because there's another operation that happened with it and count 4 would be 1. Now, NFU dot get 4. Return the value for 4, but at the same time the count 4 gets updated to 2 and count 3 gets updated to 3. That's how this question works. Now, I hope the question is clear to you, but how do we solve it? So to solve it, we'll be using a doubly linked list. Now, the complexity here is that we do not have just one doubly linked list which we can use to track key value pairs, but we have to have more than one doubly linked list to also track count versus the linked list related to that count. So say suppose there are certain key values such as 1, 2, 3, which have counts as 1. So you will have all of them in a doubly linked list mapped to a key value of count 1. Similarly, you have another doubly linked list with a key value of count 2. And that ways you will have n counts and you will have n doubly linked list mapped to it. And whenever you have to pop a value, you check which one has the minimum count, which one has been very least frequently used, and you check for that linked list. And when you have to pop something out of that linked list, this is the least used value, this is the most used value. So you will have to pop this value, and that's how you need to pop every time. And once you pop this value which has count 1 and is least frequently used, then you pop this one, then you pop this one, and so on. And once you have exhausted the entire linked list with that particular count, you start popping from the next one. So you have to keep a record of the least frequently used value currently as well, because you have to update that. So I hope you understand that now. I know the question is complex. If you have any doubts, ask them in the comments here. Now let's look at how do we solve this question. So first of all, I will have a list node class. That's how I will call any list node, right, in my linked list. So I will write that class value. This is a init method there. And I will initialize my value there and 2 pointers, previous and next pointers there. As simple as that. Whenever you initialize a linked list, you create a list node class, and that's how you do it, right? So now you write a doubly linked list class. I'm not going to explain each and every step we do in that, but I'm going to explain the methods I have created in that linked list class. There are several ways to create a doubly linked list, and you can use my method. There could be a more concise approach. You can look for other approaches as well. So I'll explain my approach. So I created an init method and I initialized 2 dummy nodes, one left node, one right node. For right node, I provided the previous as self.left. And then I mentioned self.left.next is self.right. That's how I initialized 2 dummy nodes and established their connections. And I also initialized the self.map with a dictionary. And what will it have? It will have key value pairs, right? That's how you keep a track of them, and that's how you access them in O of one type complexity. So then I also have a length method to return the length of that map. And I have a push right method, because push right would be used to push some value or to insert some value whenever a put method is called. And then I have a pop method. This pop method is used to take out some value in between from the linked list anywhere it is available. It could be in middle of the linked list. And then pop left method is actually popping the least frequently used one. So getting the least frequently used one. So that's how you do pop left. And so basically the one which is least frequently used is this one. So you pop this. So pop left method does that. And update is a combination of pop and push right. So basically you pop a value in between the linked list somewhere, and then you push it towards the right side. So that's the entire doubly linked list coded here. You can create it any which way you like it, and you have done it before, or you find an interesting way to do it. You can do that. This is my approach. So I'm just skimming through it and letting you know. So after that, the main part of the code, the crux of the code, because you might get the doubly linked list coded from the beginning itself, so that you don't have to code from the scratch, but you have to code this from the beginning. So let me explain this code. So this is my init method where I have initialized certain variables. So I have to keep a track of what capacity has been provided for the NFU cache. So self.cap equal to capacity defines that. I also have to initialize least frequently used count. And when I'm starting with the cache, I don't have it. So I initialize it with 0 right now. Then self.val map, where key value pairs are mapped, it's a dictionary. So I initialize it that. And then self.count map would be collections.defaultInt. And then you will have a self.list map, which will be collections.default linked list. So basically here, collections.default you map key and count pairs, and list map you map count and linked list pairs. So that's how you are creating 2 linked lists, okay? After that, I write a method called counter. This counter method would be basically my method which I call whenever I want to increase the count. So say suppose the get method is called. You have to increase the count in that scenario for that key, right? And say suppose put method is called. In that case also you have to call this function to increase the count. So I have generalized this method, and how my writing is define counter self key. And first of all, I call that keys count. So self dot count map key, because count map has count versus key pairs. So I call that and I save that count. Okay. Now whenever this counter method is called, that means get or put operation is happening and you have to increment this count. So I increment that. Self dot count map key incremented by 1. Now my job does not end there. I have a list map where the linked list which was earlier connected with prior count, it needs to be popped from that linked list and needs to be pushed to the other linked list with the increased count. So that's what I've done here. Self.list map count, which was the prior count, I pop the key from there and then I push right that key to the count plus 1 list. So that's how you do it. And then I have to handle another edge case where I have exhausted and popped all the nodes from count 1. So I have to move to count 2, right? So that's what this edge case is handling. If the count is equal to self dot least frequently used count, that is my prior count when entering this counter was self dot least frequently used count, and I don't have anyone which has least frequently used count now. So self dot list map count dot length is equal to 0. That is, I've exhausted the entire linked list of that particular count. Then I have to update my least frequently used count by 1. So that's what I have done. Simple. Your least frequently used count was, say, suppose 2 earlier when you entered this loop. And you have exhausted all the list nodes which had count as 2. So you have to increment your least frequently used count as well, right? So that's what you're doing it here. That's my entire counter function. Now my next method is get. In get method, I first check if the key I'm trying to fetch is there in my value map key value pair or not. If it is not there, I return -1. Now, as I indicated, whether I'm calling get method or put method, I have to increment the count. So I call my counter function here for this key. And finally, I return my self.value map key. So I have to return that value for the key, right? That is shown in value map dictionary. So I just return it from there. Now my put method, this is a little complex. It has a lot of edge cases, so let's understand it better. Now my put method, I first will check in the question I have been provided with 0 capacity. If I have been provided with 0 capacity, I cannot do much. I have to just return. So I'll do that. If self.cat is equal to 0, just return. Now my next case would be when my key is not there in self.value map, that is my key value pair has not occurred before, but my capacity has been reached. So my length of self.value map is self for cat. That is, my capacity has reached, but I have not inserted the new key which I have to insert. So in such a scenario, I will do pop list. I will pop the least frequently used one. So that's what I'm doing here. Sense.list map, sense.least frequently used count dot pop left. So I first get least frequently used count 1. Then I get key corresponding to that list map. I get the linked list, linked list corresponding to that count. And then I pop left from that. So I'll store that value in result. And I have to pop that value from both key value pair dictionary and count key pair dictionary. That's what I've done here. And finally, whenever you do put operation, you have to call counter on key because you have to increase the count for that key, right? That's what I've done here. And you have to insert that value to key value pair. So self.value map equal to value. That's how you insert. And finally, you have to update your least frequently used count. So it might just be the case that the value you are inserting might have the least frequently used count. So you have to take a minimum of the current self.least frequently used count, the current one, and the value you are inserting that count. So self.count back the key. So if the value you are inserting that count is minimum and less than the current least frequently used count, you have to update your least frequently used count. So that's your entire code. I'll just run it. It's accepted. Let's submit. So as you can see, my solution is doing really well here. The time complexity is O of 1 because we are doing all of O of 1 operations. Since you have created a map here, that's why your calling also is O of 1. But your space complexity would be O of n because you're using hash maps here. So I hope you understand. I know the question is complex and suggest you pause the video and try this question once more. Try coding it yourself. Try coding your W linked list yourself. And let me know if you have doubts in the comments here and I'll be happy to address it. The 7th question we are going to discuss today is LeetCode 134 gas station. It's been an all-time favorite question for Meta and Amazon in their last 1 month of interview rounds. So let's see what does this question say. But before I explain the question to you, I would like to let you know that this is a greedy method solved question. And if you have solved it, you will be able to do it in the optimum manner. Otherwise, if you have not solved it and you're looking at it for the first time, you would get a solution which is not that optimum, which is O of n square time complexity. And I will explain you why. So, what does this question say first? You have been given n gas stations along a circular route, and all those gas stations have certain amount of gas. At the ith station, you can say the gas is gas I, and you have a car with unlimited gas tank, and it cost around cost I, and that is a cost array given to you as shown in the example here. So you have a gas array and a cost array, and the cost is the cost of gas to travel from ith station to I plus 1th station when you're talking about cost time. So you begin a journey at any point of time with an empty tank at one of the gas stations. You have been given two integer arrays, like I told, gas array and cost array. And you have to return the starting gas station's index such that you never run out of gas when you're traveling around the circuit once in the clockwise direction. Otherwise, if that is not possible, you have to return -1. If there exists a solution, there would always be a guaranteed unique solution. You cannot have multi solutions. So, this solution is better explained by an example. So, I will take this example here. You have a gas array, and these gas stations are organized in a circular manner. So, gas 0, gas 1, gas 2 are different gas stations, okay? And then this cost is the amount of cost you have to pay for the gas at that particular gas station. Okay. So, how can you buy a gas at a gas station when your gas minus cost difference is positive? If your cost is more while the gas you have is less, at that time you cannot have the gas at that gas station and you will run out of gas. So, you have to take the entire clockwise round or circuit around the gas station, starting from any one gas station, and not run out of gas. That's your question. So, you have to return the starting index of that gas station that makes all of this possible. Okay. So, how to find that gas station? So, we have a gas array here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we have a cost array here 3, 4, 5, 1, 2. So, your starting index or your any index should be such that you don't run off out of gas, which is possible only if gas minus cost is positive, right? So, I have a difference array where I subtract corresponding elements here. So, 1 minus 3 minus 2. That means that if you start from this index, at that time, your cost is 3, your gas is 1. So, 1 minus 3 minus 2, that is you're 2 short. Okay. Then 2 minus 4 is -2. 3 minus 5 is -2. 4 minus 1 is 3, first positive. And 5 minus 2 is 3. Now you have also been told that in any scenario, you will have only one unique solution. So there cannot be more than one solution is correct. So if you have found one solution, you can let it be. You don't need to find for next solution. Okay. Now, how do you ensure that there would be a solution? So to ensure that there would be a solution, your sum of gas required should be positive and should be greater than your cost of gas. Because any time greater than or equal to, because any time if it is less, in that scenario, your cost is more, so you will run out of gas. So that is your first check you need to do. After that, you follow the greedy algorithm and you run on this difference array. And in this difference array, you find one starting index and then see if your total is positive or not, which is negative here. Then you go to the next index and you see if your total is positive or not, but it is negative, so you cannot start here. Now you go to the next index and you see if your total is positive or not, but it is again negative, so you cannot start here. Now this is the first index where your gas minus cost is positive, so you can start here. Say suppose you start here and then you take gas from here, so you have 3 gas right here. Now you go to the next gas station, you still have positive, so 3 plus 3 is 6. Now you have to go in clockwise manner, so you check 6 and subtract all of the negatives. So all of the negatives are -6. So 6 minus 6, that is 0. But you are able to take the clockwise turn. That means you are able to fulfill the entire circle without running out of gas. Your sum of gas is equal to cost of gas. Hence your solution exists. And your starting index would be this index. That is 0, 1, 2, 3, third index. And that's your output here. So basically, you will start at third index, and that's how you will be able to finish the entire clockwise circle. Now, you'll ask me that the last index also has a positive difference. Can't we start from here? So if you choose to start from there, in such a scenario, you have 3 here, but you have -6 here. So 3 minus 6, that is -3. You already ran out of gas. So that is not a possible solution. Now look at example 2. In example 2, you have 2, 3, 4 as the gas array and 3, 4, 3 as the cost array. So if you first check the sum of gas is 4 plus 2, 6 plus 3, 9, whereas your cost is 3 plus 3, 6 plus 4, 10. So your cost of gas is more than the gas. That means you will run out of gas and your output would be -1. So I hope you understand the question very well. And the approach we are going to take, it's a greedy method solved solution. Now, what if you have not seen this question before and you're doing it in the interview for the first time? I'm not saying you cannot do it. I'm saying that you can do it, but your approach would be the basic approach which I would have taken if I have not seen this question. So what my approach would be, okay, I'll go through gas array, I'll go through cost array, I'll pick up one pair gas and cost here. I'll start from this index and then I'll run through the entire gas array to see if somewhere I run out of gas. So then if I run out of gas, I'll move to the next index and start from there and take a clockwise circle and see if I run out of gas. Then I'll move to the next index and see the same. So in such a scenario, I'm running through the entire array, so O of n, but with every index when I'm starting, I'm checking for the entire clockwise array, right? So O of n squared. So I'm essentially running the loop twice. So my time complexity would be O of n squared there. But with this approach, I don't have to run the entire loop. I just have to find a index where the difference is positive. And since I've already checked that sum of gas is greater than equal to cost of gas, I don't have to check for the entire array. I just need to check until the end of this difference array. If I found a starting point which is positive and I can see that until the end of the array, the total remains positive, then that index is my answer. I don't need to run it and check for the entire array. I know it's not very intuitive, but this approach is like, if you know it, you can do it. If you don't know it, you'll somehow do some complexity. So let's start coding it, and with the code, you will understand it better. So first of all, I handle my default condition, which is if my sum of gas is less than my sum of cost. In such a scenario, my solution does not exist and I will run out of gas. So my solution would be -1. Now, if this is not true and we go ahead in the loop, in such a scenario, I'll check my total. So I'll initialize my total by 0. And I'll also initialize my result index by 0 because I'm starting from the 0th index to check this, right? After that, for I in range length of gas, because I'm checking for the gas array. And what my total would be, my total will get updated as gas I minus cost I. If it is positive, positive. If it is negative, negative. That's what get updated in the total. And then I check if my total is less than 0. If it is less than 0, then I reset my total to 0 and I'll move to the next index. That's what I need to do, right? So my result cannot be this index since my total became less than 0 and I ran out of gas. So I have to check for my next index and my result would be I plus 1. So I update my result. And then finally, I have got some result. I just return that result. That would be my end index. So let's take an example. Say, suppose this is our example. We start from the 0th index. So here, our 1 minus 3 is -2. So total is less than 0. So they set total to 0 again. And our result will get set to 0 plus 1. That is first index. And then we again run through the loop. This is again -2. So our result gets set to second index. Again, we run through the loop and we see that it is -2. So it gets set to third index. And in third index, our total is positive 6. So we get 4 minus 1, 3 plus 5 minus 2, 6. And our total is not less than 0. The total comes out to be 6. And our result remains 3. So we can return the result. So that's the entire crux of the code. Now, time complexity using this approach would be O of n because you are running through the gas array only once and that too not fully, right? So the time complexity is O of n, and your space complexity or your memory complexity would be O of 1, the constant space complexity. So that's the entire question. If you have a better approach to solve this question, I would suggest you mention it in the comments here. I would be happy to know it. If you like my way of solving problems, subscribe to my channel to get your notifications for your daily lead code challenge. Tap on the link in my bio or in the description of this video to watch the full solution. And this is the entire subset of all the 7 questions asked in last 1 month of interviews in FANG companies. And if you have some better questions you would like me to solve, also mention them in the comments. Share it with your friends, share it with your network so that I can reach the right audience. Thank you.